So the latest event for Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, titled Ever Crisis Academy 7, has launched its first official episode, titled Midgard Brawler, and it is hands down one of the silliest, goofiest things I think I've ever seen from Final Fantasy VII, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. So we're going to break down that episode in today's video. So if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button, and if you're new here and you'd like to stick around, you can subscribe. So for this video, we'll be using the playthrough from YouTube user Stygian Stilettos Gamer. So if you'd like to go and give them a follow, they're going to be playing through this event. And I believe they're also going to be recapping the event themselves and doing their own review if you guys would like to check that out. So I'll leave a link to their profile in the description down below. So we open Midgard Brawler with our first day at the Midgard 7th High School, or 7th High as they like to call it for short. And we are the protagonist in this story. We are the brand new student teacher heading for some chaos. Now, I did do a video recently kind of breaking down the characters and their profiles and kind of different personalities for this event in particular. There was also a relationship chart. So if you guys want to check that out, I'll leave that in the description as well if you kind of want to get caught up to speed on who everyone is. But I'll try to give you guys the Spark Notes version on the characters as we progress through the event. So the first person we run into happens to be the school advisor slash gym teacher and baseball coach, and that is Barrett Wallace, who they affectionately refer to as Mr. B. Right out the gate, he tells us, look, this is not going to be the easiest job. The kids here are a little bit rowdy, but if you stick with me, you'll get through it. And he tells us that he's going to be there with us every step of the way, which is some funny foreshadowing. We enter class and the school day starts, and Barrett introduces us to everybody and specifically singles out Tifa and asks us if we have any questions, refer to Tifa. Now, in this event, Tifa is the class president, Miss Goody Two-Shoes, always doing the right thing, worried about people, wanting to help out. This is the cool thing about this event, is that they take the personalities of the characters from the original FF7 and the remake trilogy. They kind of dial them up to 11 and help them fit into these newer school visual novel archetypes, and it just honestly works really well. So as Barrett tells us that Tifa is probably one of the best students in the school, he says, look, if you got any questions, just refer to Tifa. Tifa then chastises him by saying, hey, look, you can't just throw your responsibilities onto me, man. In this moment, Barrett calls out Cloud, who happens to be sleeping in class. His head is on the desk, not paying any attention, to which Barrett remarks, I get no respect. As class is starting, Zach shows up late, which is pretty funny because Zach is a bit of a himbo in this event. Zach in general is kind of a himbo, but he's got a heart of gold. He really does care about doing the right thing, but what's funny is that Zach was actually held back, so he should have graduated, but because he skips class a lot and plays hooky, he was held back, unfortunately. As Zach steps into class, he remembers, oh no, this is Mr. B's class, which means my ears are going to be ringing by the time we're done, because Barrett, as we know, can be very, very loud. Barrett hears him and questions, what did you say? Zach then says, oh, I remember I had to do something. So he takes off, and Barrett then goes, oh man, now I gotta chase after him, leaving us in charge of the class. Some time passes and we start a conversation with Tifa, and she remarks that she's kind of surprised that Barrett and Zach aren't back yet because normally this doesn't take this long, implying that Zach plays hooky quite a bit and Barrett is usually the one that has to chase him down. As we are talking to Tifa, we hear a voice from outside, a very mysterious voice labeled Minion, and they're telling us, the new school student teacher, we need to go outside and pay our respects to their boss. Enter my favorite characterization of this event, and it is high school delinquent Aerith, complete with a face mask and a tattoo, which from what I know of Japanese culture, tattoos are kind of considered a bit taboo. They don't really like you getting them. So for them to include a tattoo on Aerith just really shows how rebellious she is. And again, this kind of fits with Aerith's character from the game. She can be a little bit rebellious, rambunctious, feisty, and just kind of turning that up to 11 and making her the high school delinquent, I think, is hilarious. And Aerith is not alone. She has her own posse of minions known as Team Cetra, which Tifa then tells us they're known for going around town terrorizing the city, and they speculate that they're backed by a bigger organization. And this group is so bad that the last teacher that actually stood up to them ended up quitting their job the very next day. So Aerith doesn't play around. Tifa then goes to look for Barrett to try and calm the situation, and we go talk to Aerith, which is not going to go well. And she is basically threatening us until Zack steps in and tells her, look, you should stop. Like, this is this person's first day, harassing them on their first day. That's just not cool, man. But she tells him to back off and then hits him with her rod, so she's a bit aggressive. As a fight is about to break out, Barrett shows up and is able to step in and break up the fight. Barrett then yells at the both of them saying, look, if you're gonna take this anger, this energy you got, you might as well put it towards baseball. Use that as an outlet. However, Zack and Aerith don't want to hear any of that, and both of them take off. Barrett then overshares a little bit with us and says that his true passion is for baseball, and all he wants is to take down the rival school, the Shinra Academy, and go to the Nationals. And then he finds Cloud and urges Cloud, hey Cloud, you should join the baseball team, to which Cloud responds, not interested. Our first day ends. Now, as we are heading home, we're going through the shopping district. It's really beautiful. Also, the music they use in this event is so good. It just is a really great reminder of how incredible the music of Final Fantasy VII actually is. And a lot of these newer arrangements just kind of like pay tribute to the original versions, keep the spirit alive while also being something new. But we run into Tifa and we're like, hey Tifa, what are you doing here? Like, shouldn't you be at home? Tifa then tells us that her family runs a local cafe in the area called Seventh Bliss and tells us we should drop by sometime for some coffee. And this is cool because in this scenario, Tifa's family is still alive. They're together, so she kind of gets a little bit of a happier life. She's doing good in school. She talks a little bit about Cloud coming up, but the fact that they're together and have a coffee shop, which is obviously like a tribute to what Tifa does in the main game of Seventh Heaven, I think is super sweet. She also mentions that Mr. B stops by all the time with his daughter, Marlene. How cute. She then apologizes to us for us having a first rough day, and then she questions, I don't know why these students like to fight so much. She then gets on the subject of Cloud, saying that Cloud actually looks up to a lot of those students who like to fight, which is kind of baffling to her because she's known Cloud since they were kids, and he's never been interested in fighting. He was actually obsessed with baseball. But once he got into high school, that all changed, and he's now obsessed with taking the mantle of Brawler First Class, which is an actual title that their school holds. But she's obviously worried about him because she doesn't want him to get hurt. So again, that relationship between Cloud and Tifa, like it was in the original game, is going on in this event too, with just a little bit of a twist. She then pleads with us like, hey, you know, Mr. B tried to get him to not fight and take up baseball. It didn't work. Maybe you could do something. Day 2 begins. Class surprisingly goes very well. Barrett has to leave, so he charges us with cleaning up the class. Of course, Tifa, being the good person she is, also offers to help us. She then tries to get Cloud to help, and again, he responds by saying, not interested. He then leaves. Tifa sighs and has one of the funniest lines, I think, in this event by saying, Cloud used to do anything I asked, but now he won't even listen, which I think is really funny. So as class ends, we head up to the rooftop to look over the school syllabus. The day is beautiful, the sky is blue, there's these pink flower petals coming from some direction being blown in the wind. We don't know where they're coming from. But in the distance, we can hear somebody swinging what sounds like a baseball bat, and it turns out to be Cloud. He questions why we're up here, and we say, well, we're just here getting fresh air. What are you doing up here? You're skipping class? We then warn him, don't cut class, man. But he responds, I'm not cutting class, I'm just getting fresh air like you. So again, Cloud has that smart ass side that likes to come out every once in a while, and it's clearly showing here. In this moment, we remember Tifa's plea, and we talk to Cloud and ask him, like, do you actually like fighting or do you actually like baseball? And Cloud says to us that he's actually training to get stronger and beat someone. He's not quite there yet, but one day he will be, which is a cool little callback to, you know, young Cloud wanting to be soldier first class. He's going to train hard to get there, but he's not there just yet. So that's a really cool kind of pinpoint to the original story, as well as, again, you know, 7 Remake. We ask him, who is that someone you're trying to beat? And Cloud responds, it's Zack. And this is where, again, we get some more backstory on Zack. Cloud says if you want to get to the top, you gotta go through him because he held that title of Brawler First Class. But when he was held back, He then got placed into the same class as Cloud. So now Cloud has that desire to beat him and become the best. That's his chance, his opportunity to prove himself. Now Cloud tells us, all right, can you leave me alone? I need to train more. And as he's waving us off, he accidentally hits us and we lose our papers and they just go flying into the schoolyard. He apologizes immediately and is like, I'll go get the papers for you. So he leaves to go get the papers. We chase after him and we find almost all the papers except one. Cloud speculates that it probably went behind the school building, to which Zack shows up. Cloud explains what happened, and then Cloud bolts to the back of the school to look for the last piece of paper because he thinks it went in that direction. But as he does that, Zack tries to warn him, no, don't go back behind the school. Unfortunately, Cloud doesn't hear him. Zack then turns to us and says, never ever go past the storehouse behind the school. He doesn't say why, he just says don't do it. He then leaves. Cloud comes back, paperless, but he still firmly believes that that paper has to be somewhere behind the school building. And he takes off again. We try to warn him, but he doesn't hear us. So we go chasing after him. We squeeze through a little crack and we do end up finding the paper, but we also find a very beautiful flower bed that is very well maintained. When suddenly, Aerith and Team Cetra show up. They're not happy that we're here. She wants to fight, however, Cloud kind of nervously diffuses the situation and then he takes off. And we follow right behind him. In this moment, Aerith is pretty upset because accidentally, Cloud and us, we stepped on the flower bed, ruining some of the flowers. And Aerith in this moment vows that she is going to make us pay. Day 3 begins and we're at the beginning of class and Tifa's worried because Cloud hasn't shown up. And she says this is out of character for Cloud. He has never skipped school in his life. And she does recall seeing him the night before practicing his baseball swings, but she could tell something was off. So again, that's kind of another cool callback to that relationship between Cloud and Tifa, where Tifa clearly knows something is wrong with Cloud, but she doesn't want to press the situation too much. So she just kind of stays back a little bit. Zack shows up and tells Tifa, you worry too much. And this is cool because, interactions between Tifa and Zack, that did happen in Nibelheim, but we haven't seen that just yet. We'll probably see that in 7 Remake Part 3, some of their actual interactions at Nibelheim. And Zack is just downplaying this entire situation. You're worrying too much. I'm sure he's fine. And Tifa's like, no, I don't want him to end up like you and get held back. And Zack's like, yeah, I get it. You're right. As class is starting, Aerith bursts into the room and she's shocked to actually see Zack in class because again, Zack likes to play hooky. He's rarely in class. She then points to us and says, I want to see you on the rooftop. She leaves. Zack looks at us and goes, you went behind the school, didn't you? We then awkwardly nod and be like, yeah, we did. But being the nice guy that he is, he runs off to try and handle the situation for us. Freaking bear it out, of course. He then looks at us and says, hey, go get Zack. So we make it to the roof. Aerith is not there yet, but Zack is. And we question Zack, what's the situation with you and Aerith? He responds by saying that it's complicated, but they've known each other and been in the same class since elementary school. And he does tell us she didn't have the most normal upbringing, which he didn't either, and that allowed the both of them to get along as well as they did. Now, interestingly enough, the reason why she actually joined Team Cetra and became this high school bully is because she had the dream of becoming Brawler First Class. However, because Zack got held back, he retained the title, and that did not sit well with Aerith. So she's been upset with him ever since. Zack then reveals that Aerith talks a big game, but in reality, she's just a lonely girl who likes to take care of flowers. And he just wishes that she would be real and honest and admit that. Aerith then shows up hitting us with the rod.
It's attached to your rod, mother licker.
Threatening to beat us up. She wants to fight. Again, high school delinquent bully Aerith. I love it. It's just so silly and over the top. Zack steps in, however, again, being a really nice dude and says, look, part of this is my fault that they went behind the building. I tried to warn them, but they didn't hear me. So he offers to step in and fight Aerith on our behalf. Aerith, of course, tells him to stay out of it, but Zack says, look, I'll make you a deal. If you win, I'll back off and stay out of your business. But if I win, you gotta do whatever I say. Does that sound good? Of course, Aerith wanting to fight says, sure, I accept. The fight begins, and the name they give Aerith as the enemy is Big Bad Aerith, which again, somebody like Aerith, being such a firecracker, but also being super cute and adorable, being this high school bully, going around picking fights, I think is just hilarious. And again, really turns that dial up to 11. For those of you who have seen Spinal Tap, you'll understand that reference. Of course, Zack wins the fight, and Aerith is actually kind of happy because Zack didn't hold back in this one. But Zack responds by saying, well, I couldn't afford to lose. He then goes to tell Aerith, look, you really gotta stop acting like you're all tough or something, and just be real, be who you are. However, Aerith claims that she's not acting. And then Zack reveals the truth and calls Aerith out, saying, you're acting out because you're embarrassed that everyone knows that you're growing flowers and taking care of them, and says to her, you shouldn't be. This comes as a massive shock to Aerith, and she's incredibly embarrassed because she didn't know that everybody in school knew that she was the one taking care of that flower bed in the back. And she says that, well, she didn't want people to know because she felt it set a bad example for Team Cetra, because they're the bullies, they're the minions. They go around terrorizing people. If you find out that this person who is like the leader of a gang suddenly is taking care of flowers, it kind of hurts the image a little bit, right? But again, she's stunned because she had no idea that everyone at 7th High knew her secret. And her minions apologize. They call her boss, by the way. They're like, boss, look, once those rumors started, we tried to shut them down, but we couldn't. Now, while Aerith is devastated, she realizes she can't hide anymore. It's just out there in the open. She then turns to Zack and asks him, like, hey, aren't you tired of fighting all the time? And he's like, yeah, kinda. Barrett butts in, finding all of us, again, yelling at everyone to get back to class. But then he also says, look, if you're gonna skip class, the least you can do is play baseball. Poor Barrett just wants people to either be in class or play baseball. He loves it that much. And in this moment, Zack gets an idea. He is struck with inspiration, and he realizes that the Shinra Academy has the best baseball team around. This gets the wheels going, and he takes off. Now it's just us and Aerith, and we get the opportunity to apologize to her for accidentally stepping on the flowers. She accepts and also apologizes by saying that she's sorry for hassling us. And according to her minions, that's her way of getting to know people. However, they weren't supposed to reveal that, and she gets really mad at them. They then take off, and her minions say they will follow her to the ends of the earth. And that brings us to the very end of the first episode, Brawler. And I think this was super fun. It's such a ridiculous, over-the-top, goofy event that I really appreciate, because the story of FF7 does have levity, but it also has a lot of serious things. And for them to just have this one-off event where it's based off of a visual novel, the characters are in a high school setting, their personalities have been dialed up to 11 and been made, you know, kind of goofy-ish, I think is funny. But also to see character actions that we've never seen before. Barrett and Zack, I feel like the way they interact in this event is how they would probably interact in the main game if they were to ever meet each other. Because in a way, Barrett does kind of interact with Zack, but it's through Cloud, because Cloud has, you know, some of Zack's mannerisms and his memories. So there's a little bit of Zack there when you really think about it, communicating with Barrett. But for them to actually be in the same room and talking, I feel like that is what would happen. Barrett would try to control the situation. Zack would just kind of bolt off or talk back. I think it would be almost kind of like a father-son situation, much like how Barrett and Yuffie is father-daughter. I think Barrett and Zack would be like father-son, or like father and nephew. His obsession with baseball too, I think, is hilarious. Just wanting people like, look, if you're going to skip class, the least you can do is play some baseball, join my team. We got to take out Shinra, which again, taking out Shinra again is still something that Barrett wants to do in the original game. So they co-opted that and just made it a baseball team instead, and a rival school. Cloud is Cloud. He still has a good heart. He's kind of standoffish, likes to be his own thing, but he's still striving for something, a goal. Not soldier first class, but brawler first class. So when he puts his mind to something, he wants to get it done. Tifa, again, being like the moral compass of the group in the main game, having her be the class president. She cares about Cloud. She offers to help. She also wants to do the right thing. Again, that's still very much Tifa, but to put her in the class president, like goody two-shoes role, I think is great. Zack being the himbo with a heart of gold. That's just Zack. That's classic Zack. But Aerith being the big bad, being the big bully Aerith, going around causing mayhem. She's got her own gang that terrorizes the city, but there's an actual truth to why she does that. Hers is probably the biggest change, making her into a bully, but her personality is still on display. Aerith is very much a firecracker. She can be sweet and gentle and caring, but she also has that feisty side where she can be rebellious. Even in the most innocent way possible, like in 7 Remake when Elmira says, you know, like, stay inside, don't go anywhere. and she asks Cloud to leave in the middle of the night. You end up leaving, and Aerith is there. She's already left the house. She's waiting for Cloud. She disobeyed her mom. So they still kept that fiery, spunky aspect to her personality, which I think is great. And then for us, the player/viewer being the, student teacher who's kind of witnessing all of this firsthand, I think is super cool. And it also changes the way we see the characters interact, because now it's us interacting with the cast of Final Fantasy VII instead of us being Cloud interacting with the other characters. So I have no idea how many episodes are planned for this event. I would assume maybe one more, maybe two more, but I think the ultimate goal is for us to form a baseball team that can compete against the Shinra Academy, which is probably going to have Sephiroth and Angeal and who knows who else. But I really enjoy that they can do these one-off, silly, fun, lighthearted events with Ever Crisis. And again, it kind of makes me hope that maybe they'll do something similar in the future with Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. The game comes out, we finish it, and maybe they have like these cool one-off, non-canon story DLC things that we can play, because it's just fun to see the characters just kind of relax and let loose, and in this situation, be transported to high school. Something we've never seen before. Seeing them in that high school setting with a visual novel style, I think is actually really fun, and I do want to see more of this. So with that being said, that is the video. I am Curious Corduroy. Let me know in the comments down below, what did you guys think so far of Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis Academy 7 Episode Brawler? Did you also think that it was fun and goofy? Let me know in the comments down below. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.